Hi everybody, I'm Jessica Comfort and I'm with Fauquier County Public Schools. This week I helped run my counseling groups, continued to meet with my individual counseling kids, and I went to a couple staff meetings. We had an eligibility meeting. Highlights this week were actually running both of the middle school girls groups on my own. My supervisor was out for half a day, and so she asked if I'd be okay running the groups, and I was. And so I was able to prepare some topics that I wanted to go over with the girls that we hadn't touched on in quite a while, and they actually went pretty well. We talked for the whole 40-minute sessions, and I felt like we, got on some good topics, and that it was a success. And then also just continuing to follow my individual counseling kids, even though we've been well into the field placement so far this week, or this year rather. I feel like I'm still kind of playing catch up just from Christmas break, and then I've started to meet with a lot of new individual counseling kids, and so just continuing to build that relationship. But it went well this week. So some challenges that I had two challenges. One of the challenges was that with the same kid that I've been struggling to work with ever since this new term started in January. I had a really good relationship with a student prior to this term, and he always was willing to work with me. He cooperated. He answered questions. His behavior really didn't get any better, but he was willing to work with me. And this is the student that teachers are afraid of, and they really are trying to get him outplaced. They're not comfortable working with him. They feel like that he's going to be harmful to other students or to them. But he hasn't actually done any of these things. They think he's going to do something. But he just hasn't been cooperating at all with me. Basically, when I tried to go and pick him up for individual counseling this week, I was told to try to meet him halfway just so that he didn't, go into the bathroom or just wander the hallways. And so when he was probably about 20 feet away from me, I waved at him and smiled, and he turned right around and walked back to his class. I guess he didn't know that I was going to be going to get him. And so I went back to his class, and I said, it's time to go to counseling. And the whole time down the hall, he just kept trying to go back to class and not meet with me. And can I go now? Can I go now? I don't want to meet with you. Why do I have to meet with you? And so finally I got him into the office. But he didn't want to answer any questions. He kept getting distracted. He got up twice and just walked out of the office. And then finally, I had to just threaten a referral, which I don't ever want to have to do that. But he doesn't respect me. He's trying to walk all over me. And then the second I mentioned that, he came and he sat back down. But we didn't get anywhere with our counseling. My supervisor and I met with him together later in the week just to go over, why he needs counseling. Then it's a part of his behavior plan. And what's expected and what's appropriate and what's not appropriate. And so hopefully next week when I meet with him, some of this behavior won't be happening. So I was frustrated earlier this week with this case just because I feel like he really does need a lot of help, and he really is right on the edge of being outplaced, and I struggle with if I'm the right person to be working with him, because I feel like I'm not able to help him to the fullest ability that he needs. I have made this clear to my supervisor, but nothing's changed, and she really wants me to just continue working with him. I don't think she wants me to, give up, and I don't want to give up either, but I just feel like I'm not being effective, and he really needs more than I am able to give him. So I guess we're just going to see how the next couple weeks go. My supervisor might sit in with me on a couple sessions, which I think would be good. So with this, one of the competencies was viewing myself as a learner, engage with those with whom they work with as informants, because I went to my supervisor to talk about this. So another challenge that I had this week was an ethical dilemma that came up. this same student that I was talking about basically said that he wanted to commit suicide after they watched a short clip on like a bullying prevention campaign that we're doing that discussed suicide. He said that he wanted to commit suicide. And so his homeroom teacher, brought him to the guidance office, and his homeroom teacher is also the special ed chair, and I work really closely with her, and as does my supervisor. She helps run some of our girls groups with us. But basically the ethical dilemma was that he didn't want to talk to his guidance counselor. My supervisor wasn't there at the time. I was there running the girls groups, but no one informed me of this situation. And he refused to talk to the guidance counselor. So basically the special ed teacher took it into her own hands and had everyone leave the room, and she did the crisis assessment on his own, or the risk assessment on her own. Even the guidance counselor left the room, and then he talked, and he told her that he would commit suicide with a knife, and that he has knives in his kitchen. But after doing, her own assessment, when she told the guidance counselor afterwards, they were talking and she was sharing everything that he had shared with her. The guidance counselor said that it was a vague he was a vague risk. And so, he just went back to class, and they contacted his grandmother. I never heard actually what happened with that. But when I found out that the special ed teacher did the risk assessment, I just was really upset because it's totally against the policy. It's not what my supervisor has taught me at all. The guidance counselor, the school social worker, and the psychologist are the only 3 people that are supposed to be doing these assessments. And so it kind of just made me feel like the school isn't following the policy. They're not taking it as seriously as they should. And that, I felt kind of like the guidance counselor didn't even know what his role was. He shouldn't have allowed that to happen. And when I told my supervisor about it later that afternoon, she said just the fact that he wasn't willing to talk to anyone about it could have been a reason for him to go to get a psychological assessment in the first place. So basically with that, competency that I think I demonstrated was tolerating ambiguity in resolving ethical conflicts. I talked to my supervisor about the ethical dilemma, and she agreed that it wasn't right, that the school could get in a lot of trouble, and she talked to the correct people the next day. So she followed up on this. So our supervision meeting, competency for this is using supervision and consultation. We went through all the kids that I'm following, and I gave, updates on the kids that I see to my supervisor. I asked for advice in certain areas, and we brainstormed some ideas on what I can do with certain kids in future sessions. We also talked about the boy that I've talked about this whole virtual report. And we, like I said earlier, we called him into our office to talk to him together. And basically she told him that his counseling is not a choice, and that, he can either sit there for 30 minutes and say nothing, or he can answer questions, or we can, play a game, but that he has to be with me for 30 minutes a week. And so we talked about the ethical issues as well. And basically I just feel like I can always go to my supervisor at any point. I don't have to wait until I have my supervision meeting. Like if something comes up, I always go to her right away. So basically my question would be, have you witnessed any ethical issues at your placement that you really struggled with? And if so, what steps did you take to try to resolve the issue? All right, that's all. Thanks for listening.